Greetings, everyone. My name is Shaylin Scott, the founder of Book Mecca, and Book Mecca is an online Black bookstore and literary platform for all things Black lit. If you have been following us for a while, we love to highlight authors that are doing phenomenal work, not just in their literary world, but also in their communities and talking about really big topics. So today we have a very special presentation with two very special guests that are here as well. We have the author of one of the books I'll show here, The Silent Jewel Speaks, Young, Gifted, and Depressed, Cicely Adri'anna. And I will give you a little introduction about her before I bring her up. So make sure you tell all your friends and family, share, like, leave something in the comments for us as well so we can make sure to stay engaged with you guys. So a little bit about Cicely Adri'anna. She's an inspiring transformational speaker. She's an author, a certified life coach, and she lives by the motto, know thyself and show up in the world boldly. At her core, she's on a mission to be the advocate voice for the strong friend while empowering women and youth to take actionable steps to transform their lives personally and professionally. She has a very long bio full of accomplishments, also from her organization called CZB Innovations, and they are committed to using resources to inspire change. She has over 17 years of experience working with vulnerable populations and nonprofit agencies, also an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and her engagement extends across a diverse collection of professional service organizations, advisory boards. You can tell she's a powerhouse. Now, with that said, you will be able to hear not only more about her book, have an opportunity to purchase her book as well, and to hear more from her own words about her inspiration behind it. But also, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we'll be talking a little in depth about that. Have a professional on the call with us as well. And Cicely will be able to tell you so much more. So be ready for it. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Cicely Adri'anna up. Oh, I think you're muted.
Thank you.
There you go. Now you're unmuted.
Oh, hey, Shaylin, girl, it's so good to see you. Yeah, I've
Good
been
to
trying
see
to get
you.
together with you for a long time, so I'm super excited to be able to do this with you tonight.
So am I. I have so many questions in my head, and I'm going to try to get through as many as possible in this hour time frame for sure. And while we are going through some of the questions on your book that you wrote, and we'll be keep an eye out for Dr. Tillis as well to pop in to ask her some key questions. The
Absolutely.
first one, I want to show all the people in the audience what the book looks like so you can make sure to grab it. Can y'all see that? The Silent Jewel Speaks, Young, Gifted, and Depressed. If you have not gotten this book, go grab it for sure. I've read it cover to cover and it is phenomenal. So, speaking of cover to cover, this cover alone speaks volumes. It's a very a moving picture of you. Tell us a little bit about the story behind that.
Well, the picture was really inspired by the fact that I thought I wanted something to share my truth with my grandchildren. And so what
Mm.
I asked for is a very regal picture of myself. And I imagined it sitting on a fireplace somewhere and my grandbaby's going by saying, "Who is that? That's my grandmama." And that's where it came from. I wanted something very classical and also to show the strength and the power of Black women because I come from an amazing group of Black, strong Black women in my life.
Oh, I love that. I love how you're thinking of grandkids. And y'all, she don't even have grandkids yet. But
No, let's wait. Let's hold out. Let's hold out.
she's thinking of them ahead, like thinking of the grandbabies, seeing this image. But that's a true testament to you thinking of the legacy that you're trying to leave. And a big part of that is through the words that you write. And speaking of the words that you've written, it was a lot of very transparent and vulnerable language throughout the book. And so what does your family think about it when they read it? Did they have any words at all or any feedback that kind of made you pause about your book?
Well, first of all, the title, Young, Gifted, and Depressed. And so a lot of people really focus on the depressed part and not the young and the gifted part of it.
Mm.
So there was a lot of mixed emotions, as with mental health, illness and depression. It's not an easy topic. So imaginations kind of went wild. So the question was, what all did I reveal? And I'll be completely honest. I put in everything that made me feel the most uncomfortable, or that I felt would have the most impact to show the work that I was trying to do on my life to improve. So I
Mm.
didn't want to, it was go big or go home, essentially.
I love it. I love it. So for all the viewers who are out there, is your book a book of poetry, an anthology, a diary, a memoir? And I'm gonna let you put it in your own words.
I think in the book I say that it's a collection of soul ramblings. It is essays, letters to my son. One of the things that I do and I've done for years is I've been writing letters to my son, that I certain stages of his life he'll be able to read, and a few of the ones that are in there he has read. But that's where that came from. And the poetry, the beauty of poetry is that you're able to say so much in so few words and paint a picture. And I wanted to be able to bring people into my space, into my experience. This is the good, the bad, the beautiful, the successes all in one. So that's what poetry allows you to do. And so that's definitely what it is. But it's an anthology. You can't really, I tell people, don't judge a book by a cover, because
Yeah.
you won't get it. You definitely won't get that.
I like how you say soul ramblings, because the writing, when I read it, it read like a flow. It was almost like ups and downs in a river. It almost was kind of melodic, like a song. And so I was reading through it and I think, wow, this is phenomenal. Just so true, so transparent. And I learned a lot about myself even reading it. You have a lot of portions throughout that allow you to reflect on your own circumstances and ask really pointed questions. So, where did that come from? Was that um, something from professionals that guided you to kind of insert that in, or were you writing and thinking someone who reads this should think on themselves as well?
Well, I cannot take complete credit for that. I did have a vision since it was written. It's an essentially a letter to a legacy to my grandchildren, and I wanted to feel that way. So I knew that I wanted to be very transparent about what depression looks like, and how uh, the trials and tribulations can weave its way in and out of your life. I knew I wanted to do that, but I didn't want to leave you hanging. And so it's important to me to be vulnerable in the beginning, take you up and down with me, and I wanted to hug you at the end. So that's where the jewels are at the end, the little tidbits of things that I do in my life that help me to stay anchored, stay connected, and evolve, continue to evolve into the very best version of myself. But I cannot take all of the credit. I actually found a beautiful publisher, Mahogany Pen, and I
Shout out
had
Monica.
an amazing editor who listened to me and ensured that I did not lose my voice in what I was writing, and help me kind of craft it over. So I tell people, writing a book is not the problem. It's, you can definitely get it written down, but maintaining your voice and having an amazing editor like I did seals the deal.
That is beautiful and rare for sure. Definitely. Well, I see we have one of our special guests as well here. I'd love to bring her up. We have Dr. Crystal Tillis.
Hi, how's
Hello.
it going?
Welcome, welcome. Let's see
Thank
if
you
we
so
can make
much.
the screens a little bit better. There we go. Now we can see all of your beautiful
Yeah,
faces.
my
Well,
apologies, technical difficulties and just the devil being busy, but I'm here.
you know, we are in the Zoom world, in the virtual world, where you can never expect what you expect.
Of course not.
Well, we love to have you. And there's so much that we can dig into when we're talking about mental health. Like I mentioned, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. What is your background, Dr. Tillis?
Wow, that seems like such a loaded question.
Well,
But I majored in psychology in college, I knew before I got in college that I was going to be in psychology. So I majored in it. I went to Jackson State and I got my PhD. And so I had an opportunity to do my residency in Hialeah, Florida, because I can't technically say it's Miami. It's Hialeah. So definitely some diversity in there. And I was in the private sector for a long time. And in 2018, I started at the VA. It's the Alexandria system, but I was working
Mhm.
in Lake Charles. They have an outpatient clinic there. And because of the hurricanes in Lake Charles, they brought me back to Louisiana. So I'm a native of Louisiana, and I'm back here at home at the
All right.
outpatient clinic with the Southeastern VA healthcare system. So that's my,
Great.
I think,
Well,
all of my background.
hey,
Amazing, y'all.
that sounds amazing. And kind of speaking of just the history and reading both of your bios, it's phenomenal. And you mentioned in your bio the strong friend. I see strong, beautiful Black women right here on the screen, and we're talking about mental health and being depressed. How does that fit? How What would you say to someone who looks at you and says, "I don't see it"?
Well, probably my first thing would be what environment I'm in, because if I'm at work, my response is going to be, "You're not supposed to." And they're not, because my job is to help them with their depression and to work through that and learn skills. But if I'm in a personal setting, I probably might still say something to the effect of, "You don't, not like you're not supposed to see it, but it's like, you don't," because I do. But it's just trying to be adaptable and, warm and welcoming. So for me, it's, in some settings, you're not supposed to see it. And I guess I look at that more from a personal aspect. So, say, like, I may have some bouts of depression. You're not supposed to see that as me, as the professional. But me personally, as an individual, amongst my family, my friends, my inner circle, it's kind of like, well, how do you not? But just from a standpoint of people coming up and saying, well, what is it? What does it look like? It could be a
Mhm.
variety of things, because we're all different individuals. So for one person, it might be very somatic, where they have just a lot of physical symptoms,
Wow.
no real explanation. They go to the doctor does the blood work and says, "You're fine." And they go, "No, I'm not." I'm achy and I'm tired. For other people, it's a lot of the mental battle of what you tell yourself that people
Hmm.
don't hear. And so you oftentimes have to ask the question, like, what's going on? What's going on in your
Yeah.
mind? What are you thinking? Are you kind of zoned out on me? Where did you go?
That's important. Especially just what we're doing today, talking about it, starting the conversation,
Exactly.
opening up the voice, and making it comfortable and okay,
Yes.
even if you're not sure if your friend needs help or not, leaving the space for them to even say something. And,
Mhm.
and Cicely, when you wrote the book, what led you to even reveal any of the things that you did within your book? Was it an important moment that happened, or an aha pivotal moment in your life?
All of the above. Um, when I started to verbalize out to my close circle, not my safety circle because that's different, and I would get those, "Oh, I have that too," or, "Your cousin is on medication for this," or your coworker. It's like, "Girl, yes, I've been going to therapy for the past 6 months," and I'm going, "So y'all didn't tell me about the secret? Why y'all didn't share? Y'all left the girl out." And so, um, after that, I would encounter different people who would say things that I was very familiar with. The always tired, the anxiety that they call it. Everybody calls everything anxiety because it's an easy word. A
Hmm.
word. Depression is a little bit different to swallow. For some people, didn't hear it a lot. But if I said I was depressed, then people would say, "Well, no, you're fine. Pray about it." Those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I got tired of hearing that. And then I also got tired of people saying we should talk about it. And I said, "Okay, let's go. Put it out there. Let's talk about it." And then it never
Crickets.
happened. So I said, "That's
Yeah.
it. I'll talk about it. I'll write about it because it's important." And it has changed my life and positively impacted my family from me addressing my own issues. and they see improvements. How I love on my family and the people around me has improved. So it was an inside job. And so I want other people to invest in the inside job and to speak up for themselves. And then if they're led to also speak to others.
Yeah. There's been quite a lot of news coverage on mental health, especially now this month, but also with a few prominent names that have committed suicide or that have had mental health struggles here recently. And one thing that I heard, it was Ashley Judd, one of her recent interviews, she had mentioned how, regardless of the circumstance that happened with her mom, it was important to distinguish between the mental illness and who she was. And that spoke volumes to me because in the Black community, there's even a question here that's kind of moving along the same lines. Do you think the African American community overlooks depression because we are viewed as strong people? And I'll leave. That's a huge question there.
Do I think they're overlooked? Is that what the question was?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I don't think they're overlooked. I think that we are not allowed to see strong in different dimensions. So my strengths of admitting that I am weak, that I'm having a difficult day, it takes great courage to admit that there's a difficulty going on, to admit struggle. And so I don't think we're necessarily overlooked because I think African American and Black people, we are overall community, we're welcoming, and our culture is very family oriented in a lot of ways. Community is what we do. The question is, do we want to put that perceived weakness up front? I think that's what we run from more than anything, because historically the weakness led you to death, your children being taken away from you, a plethora of things that kind of compact the level of stress that you would put on yourself. And so I think that's a little bit more, but maybe you ladies have another idea of what that looks like.
Right. I know I was just thinking, not necessarily overlooked, but a bit disregarded, dismissed, in the sense of you'll be okay. And certainly in the African American community, it's, as Cicely said, you pray, you go to church, it'll be fine. And that's not always the case. I have nothing against prayer. I have nothing against a person's religious practices, nothing at all. But I also at the same time go, but God gave us free will and made psychologists and counselors and social workers. And, why would we not need them if, things didn't come up? And so for me, it really just kind of goes with it just being dismissed. Like it'll be okay. You'll get better. But again, as Cicely said, we're not able to see the strength in dimensions, because I have a lot of conversations with patients from time to time about, being a strong person, being a strong woman, and at the same time, letting your circle know you are not okay, in appropriate language for your children, that you're not okay. So they know everything isn't always okay. Sometimes, like mom or auntie or whomever, they're not okay, and they're human too, and they get upset and they get emotional.
A range of emotions.
Right. But it's never like, fall out and just have word vomit in front of your kid. Never that, but just letting them know the variations of your emotions, so that they're not a deer in the headlights if they ever saw it. Because people will say, I just don't want my children to be that way. And one of the questions that I'll ask is, where else are they supposed to learn that emotion and then how to cope with it? Because if they never see you cry, when you get to your limit and you exceed it, and you can't, right, and you can't take anymore, they're going, what do we do?
Oh goodness, yes. That's
so I just feel like it's oftentimes just dismissed. And I appreciate that you mentioned Ashley Judd being separate from her mental illness, because people will say very quickly, that's a schizophrenic person, that's an anxious person, that's a person that has anxiety, or that's a person that has depression. That's not a part of their identity.
Can't even do the emoji clap, but
right?
yes,
It's like an Ashe type thing.
And I have to add something to that because
Yeah.
um, for me, most recently, I was very thankful for the fact that I had been doing the work to stay aligned, to stay aware of my emotions. Because again, it allows me to be my best self for me first, put my mask on first, but also to be my best self for my children and be present. Because that's kind of what my anxiety and my depression would do for me. It would rob me of the ability to be present. So I was on autopilot doing all the things that I normally do. I asked a friend the other day, have you ever driven home from work and gotten there and not knowing how many lights you went through and did you turn the
Yeah.
radio? You don't know that, but you know you got there. You know what I mean? And so for me, anxiety and depression was putting me on autopilot in my home with my children. And when you ask, was there a motivating force for the book? Yes, because
Mhm.
I wanted to be my best version of themselves and see them as well, knowing the history of how I silently, for years, starting at the age of 8, dealt with mental illness, not knowing what it was called, dealing with depression and not knowing what it was called. So, most recently, I was about to drop my son off at school, and the tone of his voice, normally I would have ushered him out of the car. And I think I called Dr. Tillis after this conversation with my son, but something, I was present enough to know that he was not having the best day. So instead of allowing him to go in, I said, okay, we're going to drop your sister off and we're going to go for a ride and go to McDonald's for breakfast. And I said, is there something that you want to talk about? And he kind of looked and his shoulders dropped. And what he explained to me and how vulnerable he was with me, because he and I have a code word, and a code word is something that he is allowed to say to me and he gets no judgment. It's not a punishment kind of thing. So I'm not like walking in the door one day saying, why you didn't clean your room? And he gets to say the
Mhm.
code word. And I know this is something different. And he just needs mom. And that's what that morning was. And if I had not have been aware, present, doing the things that I need to be my very best self, I would not have found out that my son had been actually trying to nurture and support a friend who was having suicidal thoughts.
Mm.
I would have, and to, when he said it, I was like, okay, what does
Yeah.
that look like and how long ago? But this was actually during the pandemic. And so he explained to me times when I thought he was just going with the flow of things, getting lazy and those kind of things. That's not really what it was. He had a friend that was going through that situation and there were some other things going on, but I took the moment to applaud him for his vulnerability and help him to have the words to express himself. He also has an emotions wheel saved in his phone. That's one of the things that we do.
Oh, I like that.
He's a boy.
I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna steal that code too, but I'm gonna steal that.
Because I asked, well, how are you feeling? And he's a young boy or whatever, and sometimes it doesn't come out. So I asked him to pull out your phone, pull out your wheel, and tell me which one of these emotions, because I'm seeing sad and frustrated or an attitude, and I may be reading it wrong. So can you please tell me, what are you feeling? Pick one so that I know how to interact with you.
And kind of speaking on those tools that you mentioned that I'm gonna jack from you. How did you go about developing those tools? Was it through therapy? Was it just through your life experience? How did you figure out what worked for you and what would work for your family too?
I believe you have to lead by example. And again, I did not see it, although I have an amazing family and educated, all different backgrounds and supportive, praying, nurturing in that regard. I
Mm.
never saw what practical applications of therapy look like.
Mm.
Never saw it. One of the things I talk about in the book is I heard of Whitfield. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. And that was the crazy house that people go to. And if you went to war or something like that, that's where they would ship you off to. So that ain't nothing I'm trying to go do.
Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't sound like that fits me. But I didn't, again, thinking of my grandchildren, I did not want them to have something practical. And the benefit of the pandemic was everything kind of went virtual.
Mm.
And I was very conscious and aware of the fact that I wanted to give my children the opportunity to see what therapy was so that nobody could tell them give them this other idea. So
Yeah.
for me, therapy was mommy's going to go in her room with her cell phone. And if my daughter was running around, maybe in the bathroom, lock the door and tell her, I'm going to talk to
And
my
come
teacher.
home.
That's how I explained it to her. And that's what he knew. Oh, it's mom has therapy this month. And so it wasn't something so scary or so big. It was
Mhm.
mom goes to therapy on her phone, talks to her therapist. For my daughter, who is 7, mommy talks to her teacher on the phone about her feelings. That's how I explained it to her.
Hmm.
And it made it not so taboo.
Yeah. I,
And
I
that's what
love how. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't mean to
no,
cut you off there. You were still
no, I
going.
said that's what I wanted, because if you read my book, you will understand that suicide is a part of my story. And a lot of my family and close relatives, like most people, when you get those headlines, they were not aware. But
Mhm.
my first thought was when I was 8 years old. So
Mm.
knowing at 8 years old, that was something, and the thought was not to pass, to die. The thought was, I'm tired. And what would it be like if I just wasn't here?
Yeah.
That was the thought at 8. And knowing that and wanting to ensure that I didn't see it, although I knew I was loved, the tools that I had to wait till I was older to get existed then. So I wanted to be ensured that they saw and they knew that there was something out there, and there was a spark or a light in the darkness of where depression takes you.
Yeah.
And
that is beautiful for sure. You touched on so many good gems for sure out of all of that. And I'm going to remind everyone who's viewing too, if you have not gotten the book, you see I got my copy right here. The Silent Jewels, Young, Gifted, and
We
Depressed.
all have
Make
it.
sure I know, get your copy for sure. I see all the comments on breaking the chain, not making it taboo, and just kind of moving along those same lines. For you, Dr. Tillis, a question is, how often do you get people to reach out to you for help? Or is it usually someone that has encouraged them to do so?
I think it may be the latter, but sometimes it is random. I get people just kind of sprinkled for right now because most people know I work in the VA. And so the question initially is, are you taking people on the side? And I'm going, not yet. But the sprinkles kind of came very often. I'll never forget a lady, God bless her. She must have looked me up on Google, and my office number was there, and she called me on the phone, and I said, good morning, this is the VA, and this is Dr. Tillis. And she said, oh my God, like, it's you. And I went, yes ma'am, how can I help you? And she said, no, I like, I looked you up, and then, like, I didn't think that it would work when I called. And so she just kind of explained everything, and she said, I don't know if you remember who I am. I remembered exactly who she was, and she was looking for services for a family member. But that's often what I'll get. Like, people will say, hey, I have a relative that really could benefit. Are you taking people? So
Hmm.
I'm going, not right now, but I do think that there is some level of motivation for people by the time they get to me, because um, I try to be very warm and welcoming, but still the taboo of mental health and the fact that we have to ask for help, people would go, I wouldn't want to reach out to her. Now, my family, my very close circle, they'll call. Like, hey, I
Hmm.
need a free session. I'm about to talk to you right now. Okay,
Not to
fine.
say free,
So, you
not to
know,
say the free
that's not
section.
what I say.
well,
I
not
say,
everybody.
I say this. I want to talk to my friend. I just need 5 minutes of Dr. Tillis. Then you can go back to being my friend.
Yeah,
That's what we can do.
That's the 5 minutes free. That's it.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Then I don't want to hear no doctors. I want you to
she
be regular.
doesn't, right, she doesn't do that. She'll say, hey, like, I need the doctor for a second. But I will have some of my friends go, yeah, no, I need a free session, or, you're my therapist, I need to talk to you. And so it's just kind of a thing that I adopt. But I do feel like most of the people that come to me are from people that know me, and it's kind of like, well, do you think she would talk to me, or how do you think she would feel about it? And then hopefully the word is, of course she'll talk to you. um, you can call her. And then it's like, well, I don't want to call you, call and tell her. So
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, because it's like, when I do start taking people, that's going to be really interesting. um, and probably overwhelming at the same time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's funny you mentioned that families ago. I have a family member, I have a friend that may need your services. But now for you, Cicely, if you've gone through therapy, you're working through these things, you're using these tools, you're setting the example, and you mentioned your family weren't setting the example. So how do you move through this healing journey in a healthy way if those closest and around you aren't in the same space to do so? How are you maintaining that?
One of the jewels that I leave in the book is to gather your circle. That's a jewel. Gather your circle and understand that people can only give you what it is that they have been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to pick someone who is not necessarily in your circle, in your immediate family, to be a part of that support system that you need. For me personally, it wasn't that I didn't have amazing family and I didn't think that they would connect with me if I exposed myself. That wasn't it. The issue was, I'm Cicely Adri'anna. I'm, doing this. And it's hard when you are the strong person and the anchor for somebody to take off the mask in front of you. It's like, I don't want to do that in front of you. I can't, because you look up to me. You need me. And so for me, it was easier for me to get services and connect with people outside of my circle. And everyone's not as lucky to have a best friend and a sister and a sorority sister at that too, who is a psychologist. And I understand that. So what I say is reach out to who will listen. But by having this conversation, I want more people to not have to start from the very bottom. They have at least a baseline of what to say to that person if they show up in your space, instead of not having anything to say or any direction to put them. I stress, I am a mental health warrior and that I experienced it. I am working through it. It's an evolving practice, but I am not a professional.
Yes.
I want to guide you and tell you, I can share my experience. I can unpack it for you. I can hold your hand so that you understand that you're not alone in this, so that we can usher ourselves to the professionals that are there to be a part of the team and ensure that you are the very best version of who you are.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm an advocate for, that it's okay to not be okay, but it's sure okay to ask for some help.
There you go.
And I would hop on to say that the communication is very important to whomever the person is that you, as Cicely said, that'll listen, that'll understand. It's free of judgment, and they will try to help you if they can, because that's absolutely what happened. And you immediately, for me as a professional, I often wonder if like my clinician hat ever comes off, but I think I just kind of turn it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But, the minute that it's like, hey, I don't feel quite right, then for me, it's like, what's going on? How long has it been going on? Do we have any like recent stressors or like major life changes?
You're troubleshooting yourself.
Right. Yeah. And then, being able to have that conversation with someone that knows to then say, okay, this is potentially the process. We can do outpatient, we can do inpatient. That's something that's really scary for people, but just being able to have the conversation to say, I don't know what I should do. Can you give me some guidance or just some steps? And so, like I said, most of all, it's just having some uncomfortable conversations, some vulnerable conversations, and being transparent.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I get asked, what is therapy like? And what I hear is it like talking to your girlfriends? Oh, I'm going to pay somebody to talk. I can talk to it's not the same. It's not the same. And so that is one of the things that I think happens, that I've been guilty of it too, where you think you can handle it and you take a bubble bath. And I think Dr. Tillis can explain the difference, because I don't want to say it wrong. But one of the things my therapist used to tell me all the time is taking the shower. Self-care is preventative things, but you get to a point where taking the shower is not addressing the mental, it's not addressing whatever it is. It's not.
Yes.
It's a Band-Aid. And it took me so long to realize that I'm a staycation queen. I'm a bubble bath queen, but you only can soak so much.
Yeah, you be in the tub all day.
Try something else.
Right. And you have to, be able to say the bubble baths aren't working.
Yes,
I'm going to have to do something about this, or it's going to do something about me.
right. I
Mhm.
love that.
And, and really just saying, let me give it a try. Because I can say it's not like talking to your girlfriend. It's not like talking to your best guy friend or whomever. It's different because we're professionals. There's a protocol. There are certain things that we want to address. But I know for me, I try to always remember that I'm a psychologist, but I'm a human too. And so my
Yeah.
personality is going to be there once you build rapport with people, because I tell my patients often, I'm not for everybody. I, shoot straight. I'm
Mm,
not going to sugarcoat it. So if that's what you're looking for, this isn't going
that
to be
ain't
a
me.
good fit, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I will help you with the warm handoff to another provider that works for you. But once I'm able to build rapport with my patients and get an understanding of who they are and what their needs are, then my personality can come out, and I can have moments of, are we doing that?
Mm-hmm.
What is the thinking behind that? Can we talk about like some consequences of that behavior? And they'll kind of get like little glimpses of crystal, and it's like, seriously, we're doing that.
Yeah.
Or, when I see often when people don't want to be transparent and they don't want to be vulnerable, and I get that,
Mm.
they deflect, or they laugh, or they just do something else. And, if I have a really good rapport with a patient, then I'm going, okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. And that's okay. Because if that's what we want to do right now, I will,
Mhm.
attend to that. But when you want to come back and you want to address the issue at hand, I'm still going to be right here. And they
Yeah.
go, they're probably in their head thinking, I hate her so much. But, when they're ready, they come back around and they go, okay, I wasn't ready then. I want to talk about it now. Or they kind of have that reality check that goes, this is why I'm here, though. So
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to deflect anymore. Here it is. And that's not always easy to do, because sometimes it looks like anger, and sometimes it looks
Yeah.
like tears. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to give them the space and the silence to sit with that, and
Sit
not
with
just
yourself,
like, oh my
y'all.
God, it's okay,
Sit with yourself. If you didn't hear nothing, sit with just that.
In
Yes.
school, they teach us about that awkward silence, like we're accustomed to asking questions and then it gets awkward because nobody's saying anything.
Yeah.
And, initially when we're, young and like first and second years, we're like, we got to say something. And then as you learn and practice, no, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Many times I have to allow them to sit with those tears, and they bawl. And I'm like, this is where we needed to be.
I would say the thing that too, because I had to learn and be comfortable with. So I share with people when they tell me, oh, well, I tried therapy, it didn't work. It is okay to shop around.
Yes.
My
Oh.
therapist, who I have now, I love her. Her office always smells like chocolate. And I don't know if that's just a thing that they, senses or a thing, I guess, always smells like chocolate. But shop around, but you also have to give it an opportunity to, like, if you go in and you're not gonna say anything, you looking at them and they looking at you. I think y'all probably seen that Medea kind of show when she's sitting across from the
Dr.
therapist
Phil.
from Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, and she's like, so what are you doing? She's repeating. If you go there and waste your money and your copay on that, then you wasting your money and your time on that. You have to go in there and say, if I walk through these doors, I'm going to lay it out on the table and
Yeah.
allow the session to be what it could be,
Mhm.
and give it a little while. And if it's still not meshing the way that you feel, or you're not feeling comfortable enough to unpack what you need to pack, then it may be okay. You may need to seek out someone else and be honest about that. I think that was something that I share with people when they tell me, I'm a try, or I tried, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't like Burger King, go to McDonald's. You don't like McDonald's, but you need what you need.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I kind of normalize the conversation, to encourage you to try again. Try again, because it's like I said, it's an inside job. And
Yeah.
so I deserve the opportunity to find the right person who can provide me with the tools that I need so that when they are not there, I have something in my bag and I am not alone when I
Mhm.
need it the most.
I like how you both mentioned that it's this journey that you go through. Mental health is not just one answer and you're all healed. It is not a pill. It is not something that happens simply just by walking in one door. And like you mentioned, there is a journey. There is something that you have to find what fits you and
Mhm.
what you need in your circumstances too. And kind of speaking of your journey too, Cicely, your book goes through all different phases of your life, even up to COVID. How long did it take you to write this, and what's next?
Let's see. This is a collection. It truly is a collection of different phases in my life. And so I've been an avid journaler. And so I wanted to explore and provide to people that it wasn't, depression is not one day, it's not
Mhm.
one thing. It weaves its way in and out of your existence
Mm.
consistently. And it says, like, peekaboo, hey, how I'm doing. And you be like, damn,
How's now?
I thought we had dealt with that. And so that's the reason why it's written the way that it's written, because I wanted to show it's a backdrop. One of the descriptions that I give in the book is that it's like dust on a ceiling fan.
Mm.
And if you notice the dust on the ceiling fan is every once in a while you find something behind your TV, but if you don't check it for a long time, it'll be a lot there. But you might wipe the table off more frequently. But
Huh.
it's still depression and it's still there. So it's a constant thing that doesn't go away. But I don't also want this conversation to be limited to depression and mental health. There
Yes.
are so many other things. I, as a mom who thought I multitasked so much, I was in my 30s when I was diagnosed with ADD. 30
Mm.
years, and I'm like, that's for children. I'm just busy. I'm a mama. I got this. It's too much stuff on my list. I'm just busy. And you 30 years old, and the lady says, I believe you have ADHD. I'm like, girl, please. I'm just, I'm just grown and got these bills. She's like,
Mm-mm.
Doing too much.
maybe let's talk about it. Let's process it and see. Could that possibly be? I was like, I thought I just like to talk a lot. and, and so that's another conversation. Don't When people see the cover of my book, and again, you see young, gifted, and depressed.
Hmm.
Depression and mental health is just a very small subset
Yes.
of what mental health is. And so that is why we go to the professionals like Dr. Tillis. That is the reason why we engage in conversations with Shaylin Scott, is so you can see all these different perspectives and understand that if there are so many people in the world, there's so many of us, surely there has to be different variations of how mental health presents itself in everyone's life. And so you don't have to feel alone, because we all are going through something, but we all deserve the tools to address whatever it is that we're doing.
Yes. I don't even have nothing to say after that. Just yes. Just all of that for
Come to
sure.
one of my come to my first retreat. That'll be something we can do. We can talk about
Okay.
that.
So that's next. The retreat is next. Okay.
Yes, we're working on a strong friend retreat, and I want it to be something very welcoming. It's an opportunity for uh, what I call the strong friends, because that's who I feel like I am. And people always say, check on your strong friends. So it'll
Hmm.
really be an environment for those people who are the anchors to be amongst other anchors. And so you can kind of unpack in the strength of understanding that you are usually the person that everybody else calls. So it'll be
Oh
a
yeah.
gathering of that.
Mhm.
And I'm working on something with Dr. Tillis and a couple of other providers. It'll be fun. I have a chef that I'm working with to kind of put something
Mm.
that's a retreat, but just how to unpack in a gathering of jewels and women that are just ready to talk about and be their very best self in a safe environment and normalize this conversation. That's what it is.
Mhm.
So stay tuned
Yes.
for the Strong Friend Retreat.
Okay, y'all. Stay tuned. If you are not already following Cicely Adri'anna, make sure you are. I'll make sure to put her information up, and it's on our website and everywhere else you'll be able to follow her too. And just looking at all the viewers that are on and all of the shares that have gone out, it seems like your book really resonates with Black women. Was that on purpose, or is that just who it seems to draw in?
Actually, that's not true. It draws in African American women, and that was one of my hesitations in the branding of the book, to put my face on it, because I feel like we are the ones that are the glue and aren't given permission to be weak, or be soft. I don't want to say the word weak. I want to say the word vulnerable and delicate. We're not often allowed to do that. So that was the purpose of putting my face out there with the word depression, to show the duality of our existence, of who we could be and still own every stage of who we are and what we're experiencing. But to answer your question, actually the first person to ever actually read the book was a 64, I don't even want to say her age, an older white woman.
Mm.
She was the first person that I was able to just be vulnerable with and let her read it. And what she said to me is that it allowed her to have an experience that she had never thought about, because she assumed certain things because of the amount of access that she had and how things were normalized.
Yeah.
And so for me, that tells me that it's not. So the youngest reader that I actually have that I am aware of is 17 years old. And I was like, ooh, at first. But my son's my son's best friends, who are females, have also picked up the book. But the oldest person that I have is an older African American woman. So it's for everybody, because it's about a human experience.
Yes,
I am a
yes, it
Black
is.
woman. And so a lot of the things that you come across and the topics that I touch on, and also the questions that I ask, are meant to reflect a human experience and a soulful kind of experience. And I hope that's what I wanted it to do. That's what I was hoping that it would do.
It definitely does that. You're basically saying all the words I was gonna say, but yes, for sure. Your your book has this mirror type feeling, as if you have to look at yourself. It is a reflection on what it is. As you're reading through, you're thinking the affirmations that are in there, the reflective questions that are in there, that have you really thinking through, am I making the right choices? Do I have the right people around me? Am I thinking the right way? Should I seek help? A plethora of different options that came to mind. And I have my own highlights, so y'all can't read my highlights, but you will have your own highlights when you
Yes.
read through it. You'll have your own notes. This is not just a book to read through. I definitely encourage everyone. It's a book to work through. It's a book to just live through, because you make your own notes and movements throughout it. So it is beautiful. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
well, I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'm gonna try and get some more of these questions in before we leave too. One of the ones is, I think this one came from one of the viewers too. Did you provide any or have any resources for any of the content? I think in the very beginning there's um, a tab that talks about suicide prevention and some other resources that are available. Um, did you reach out to others in particular fields for your book? Because I know you said it was reflective in journaling as well, but did you pull from others as well too?
I did go to the general resources that I have browsed through, but because I have such a robust personal support system and therapists that I work with, those are not necessarily in there. But I do reference those at the front of the book, because I want you to have something. I want you to have something tangible, because some of the things that I mentioned can be very triggering. And I wanted you, if you were in this space, to be able to go to the front and have access to that. So I do put some resources in there. I have a lot of people who reach out to me directly, and then I also provide those to them as well.
I love that comment. Soul wrenching book. Yes. That is a good way to
Some
put
fun
it.
stuff in there too, though.
Yeah, it's some
The
sensual stuff in there. I'm gonna throw that in there. So
Yeah,
read in the middle, get to it.
yeah.
Some
I
good
got to
stuff
that
in there.
like as my friends.
See,
I just
right,
want to know,
right.
but
but I can't
if
read.
you'll give me a moment, I'll explain why that was there. Um, one of the things that mental health affects, again, it affects all your life, and so
Hmm.
also the most sensual, vulnerable, feminine parts of who you are. You when you don't feel good, you don't get dressed, you don't comb your
Yeah.
hair, you're not
Yes.
taking a shower. So all of those things that
Yes.
make you a beautiful lady. So I have to admit, when you go to therapy and you working on yourself and it's an inside job, then you life gets better in other areas as well. And so we're not gonna act like that's not a thing, because again, everybody's in relationship. My relationship with my children improved, my relationship with my significant others, they could tell the difference.
Yeah.
And so that part is in there for that reason, because I didn't want, I'll tell you, my mother said, but you're a Christian. And I said, well, where
I-
do baby Christians come from?
Thank you.
um, and that's just the reality of it. But that is why that is there. And in contrast, I'm also a survivor of sexual assault and domestic violence as well. And so I wanted to provide something that was very intimate, that also showed that there's a there's a different way to be loved on. I
Mm.
celebrate Black fathers and
Mhm.
Black men. There's one in there that says good men do exist, because I have to be responsible for the fact that not all of my relationships may have ended because of something external. Maybe I did need to do some work on myself and process some things and work them out in therapy to make myself available to be loved properly, or to know what it is and rate the standard of what it is that I wanted to do. So that is the reason why those pieces had to be in there. And
Yeah.
I would not bend on taking those out, because it's not just a dark, it's a celebration as well. Every aspect of my life has improved, because the depression and the mental health is in every part of your life. It's not
Exactly. It's not a
okay.
separate. Yeah.
Yes, it's not. It's not in a box. So that's why it's there in that capacity.
So, kind of thinking through all the chapters in your book, what's your favorite? What's one that you said, "Oh yeah, this one is definitely my favorite."
Anything, probably um, a letter to Black fathers and Mother May I.
Mm.
That's probably it, because, and again, both of those tie back to my children. They are my heartbeats. They are the legacy that I wanted to reach out to and pour into them, and the jewels that I wanted them to have, to know that their mother is not perfect. I'm human, and I don't expect perfection from them. And life can be still good in its
Yes.
imperfections. Instagram and Facebook and filters and all the things that we can do can really confuse our babies to
Hmm.
thinking that everything has to be perfect to be good. And it's not. It is the spectrum. The first poem in the book is called Embrace the Spectrum. And that is why it is the first one, because I wanted to really paint the picture of, there is so many layers to a person. And I referenced this, the fact that I am the squiggly orange line in the back where the
Yes.
painting is. That's what I wanted to convey and open it up and end with a hug and a jewel.
Speaking of ending with a hug, would you do us the honor of giving us a hug by reading one of your pieces?
Ooh, okay. Let's see, what is it? What would you like to read? What kind of vibe? I always ask, what's the vibe? What is the vibe?
I would like, this is just me, I would like to hear a letter to Black fathers,
A
if
letter to
you
life.
don't mind.
And that one comes up too, because the first story that's in the book is about my father. And I appreciate him and love him so much. I'm a daddy's girl.
Mm.
And so I will give the backstory on why I wrote a letter to fathers. I have not always had the best um, relationship with my son's fathers. And that is not a negative to them. That is life experience and just growing and evolving. And so I do believe that you can manifest and speak, and there comes a point in time where you just have to speak positive on situations and acknowledge the growth that you have and other people make. And so that's how this came to be. What page is it on? Oh, Letter to Black Fathers.
66.
66. Oh, I like that number. A letter to Black fathers. Dear Black fathers, I have to say this now. I can feel your energy shift beyond physically being tired. So, just in case no one has told you lately, you are doing a great job with your sons and daughters. Your presence is priceless. Your love is valuable. We can see you propelling yourself forward, becoming the very best version of yourself. We are all watching. Take a moment to give yourself a pat on the back for how far you have come. Your broad, bronze shoulders have extended to carry the load of the world. I see you moving to create the model of positivity for your family. Your efforts matter. You make this look so easy. I implore you to continue to believe that your prayers will yield the results for you. Go easy on yourself. You are loved and respected always. Sincerely, the Silent Jewel. And my PS for this is PS. I don't always feel like I've had the opportunity to say this out loud. Forgive me as I try to heal from the uncomfortable label of baby mama. Today, I seek to manifest a reality for my own children. I believe in you, Black Father. We believe in you.
Now, if that's not a hug, I don't know what is. Yes, snaps all the way around.
Yeah.
This has been a unbelievable uh, conversation, and I wish we had more time to just keep digging in. There are so many other questions, and later, all of you viewers, you didn't even hear about the young and the gifted part. You heard a whole lot about this part, but there's so much more. So if, as I mentioned, if you have not gotten the book, grab the book for sure. So I want to thank you, Cicely. I want to thank you, Dr. Tillis, for joining us today. It has been a honor to have you on with Book Mecca. We would love to have you back anytime you want to come to just speak, read, you name it. The door is always open.
Thank you.
You are more than welcome. And I always like to close out with a quote. So one from my favorite author, Mr. James Baldwin. Uh, he says, "For while the tale of how we suffer and how we are delighted and how we may triumph is never new, it always must be heard. There isn't any other tale to tell. It's the only light we've got in all this darkness." So I applaud you for being able to continue to shine your light for all of us out there. So thank you again. All right, everyone. Enjoy. Continue to follow us on Book Mecca and have a wonderful night.
Bye.